So I guess this is just a series now. It's kind of separate from my OC DIY videos in the sense that I'm focusing on just specific different types of ways that you can make DIYs for, keychains or buttons, things like that. I've done a previous video already, and I'll probably link it in the description on DIY keychains. I'm gonna have a lot of things listed in the description along with a clear list of all of the materials I use in every single project, just for your convenience, and hopefully that helps a little bit throughout this. With all of that out of the way, I will be grading these, I guess, with the basic criteria, the same way I did on my previous video, but just to recap, the 3 things that I'm looking for in these DIY crafts is it convenient, is it sturdy, and is it costly? And then, just personal opinions and experiences from there. I have 4 that we're going to do, so we're going to just jump into that. So the first one I did on a previous video, I think forever ago, but it was, I think, an OC DIY video. I was discussing basically soda can buttons, and all you're really doing is cutting out the bottom part of your soda can and using that as sort of a button, and it's very similar to the shape of a button, so it's really, really convenient, I'd say. In looking like a button, it also helps that it's metal, so it's also very sturdy. And since a lot of people, I think, drink soda, I drink a lot of soda, there's just an influx of cans kind of in my house continuously. It's a very easy way to cut costs instead of getting a pin maker and making pins that way. One of the things that lowers this in terms of convenience is just the amount of work that you're going to have to put into cutting out the soda can, and that can also get very dangerous, so I do wish to exercise caution when I'm doing this, and I think especially if you are on the younger side, have some adult supervision or someone older than you kind of watching over, because you can easily cut yourself with the soda can if you're not being very careful. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go on to the criteria. Under convenience, I guess I'd put it under maybe a 7. It is very convenient if you already have cans, but the process itself kind of docks it a couple points. I will say that this is a very sturdy DIY in general. You are going to be hot gluing, I guess, on basically all of these, which is just a safety pin of any kind, and the hot glue, so do keep that in mind. Besides that, the actual can itself is very sturdy. It'll last you very long if you're sealing it with maybe tape, or I like to use Mod Podge. I've mentioned Mod Podge a million times, but it is really, really helpful in longevity of each of the crafts that I do. In terms of sturdiness, I would probably put it at a 9 or 10, just because, it's metal. The extra sealant that you're using on this is probably going to help it last. But even if you don't have sealant, it's very easy to substitute again with clear tape or nail polish, even if that's what you're looking for. So I guess there's a lot of ways that you can do this. The actual base itself is sturdy. That was a little too long. Moving on to the costs, I think this is very cost efficient again, because it's a can, and I feel like everyone has a can of some sort. You can have different shapes too with these buttons depending on whichever type of can that you're buying. So in terms of costs, I wouldn't say it's too crazy if you're buying an actual can for this. Moving on to the second DIY on here. This one is really, really cool, but it's metal bottle cap pins, and basically it's the same process as I've mentioned in the soda can, where you are technically just sealing the image on top of the pin, but making the backing itself is very different because you're not really using hot glue for this one, but instead you're taking a soda tab, kind of folding it in on itself a little bit, and then putting that inside of the bottle cap and smushing all the sides to keep the soda tab in there. And you are going to need pliers for this. I don't think this is going to be something that will end very well if you do it by hand. This is metal, dangerous, I think I will have to dock a couple points in convenience if you don't have pliers for this. I will say that this is probably one of the sturdiest on here because the metal soda tab keeps it secured. There isn't really hot glue gun as the adhesive in this, so it might not fall out as easily depending on how much hot glue you're putting on there. It's very sturdy. And in terms of costs, I think it really depends. I don't know if anyone really drinks bottled soda anymore, which again, that kind of like docks it in costs, because I feel like some drinks, especially bottled ones, can be pretty expensive. And also, it's really hard to find bottled soda sometimes depending on where you're going. So again, it's not as convenient as maybe like the soda can or some of the other ones that I'm going to talk about here. Other than that, you know, it is very nice, and I think it's very sturdy, and I've probably put a couple on my jackets and my bags and whatever, and they last really, really long. I haven't had to do any repairs on those the same way that I have to usually do regular maintenance on my other DIYs, so keep that in mind. Convenience, I'd say I'd probably put it a little lower, 5 or 6, because again, there's a bunch of different circumstances with getting yourself the actual metal bottle cap, just in general needing pliers for most of this, and the process itself being a little bit dangerous. It's really nice, but not as convenient. I will say that it is very sturdy with the next criteria, so that's, again, the soda can button, a 9 or 10. I don't think you're going to need to repair this over and over again for it to last. Costs, I would probably put it at a, forgive me, 6 or a 7. I already had a whole tangent on this on my last video. I'm not going through that again, only because it depends on the costs, whatever brand that you're buying the soda. But I think you can also buy these types of bottle caps in bulk for pretty cheap, but you know, very dependent on what type of brand. Moving on to this next one, it's technically kind of similar to the metal bottle cap, but not really. It's plastic caps and other types of caps. I have a bunch of friends who drink really large things, so they'll give me the caps for these because they're like, oh, you're crafty, and I'm like, yes, I am. So I have a bunch of different types of caps with different shapes. Most of them are plastic. They are sturdy, but not the same way a metal one is, if that makes sense. And you can't exactly fold it in on itself like a metal bottle cap can. So the process of putting the backing on it would be very similar to the soda can, in the sense that you're just putting a bunch of hot glue on the back and a safety pin and calling it a day. But they are very, very convenient. Again, I feel like you can find any type of plastic bottle cap or caps for drinks in general that work. I have a couple that are really large, and so it's super nice because it's the same size approximately as the soda can buttons, so they blend in really nice, but their shape is like slightly different. And again, it depends on whatever type of cap that you're getting. The application of the paper might be easier depending on what cap that you get. You can find them anywhere. It's not too difficult. It's just basically sealing the image onto the cap the same way that I've talked about the last 2 pins. And so, going to the criteria, it is very convenient. Second most convenient out of every other button that I'm going to be talking about here. Put that at a 9 or a 10, just because the process is very simple, and you know, you can use any cap for this. I'm not entirely sure on the sturdiness of this. Like, it is very sturdy. It's plastic. I'm sure if you shake it a lot, then it's going to last you pretty long, but it's not very secure in the same way the metal bottle cap is, so maybe a 7 or an 8 in terms of sturdiness. And costs, I'd say this is probably one of the most cost efficient, because there's a bunch of like really cheap plastic bottles that you can find. You can even use those basic water bottle caps, I think, for these. Though they wouldn't have as great of a grip, you can find any cap ever and use this for it. So I'd say really cost efficient, so probably a 9 or a 10, but that might be overranking it, I don't know. Moving on to the technical last one. I saw a tutorial for this on TikTok, and I'll be linking the creator's original tutorial for this in the description, but it's basically cutting out a piece of cardboard and taping the image onto the cardboard, and instead of using hot glue for the backing, they used a bunch of tape and layered it on like that. I think this is like one of the most convenient, but I do think it has to be docked a little bit just for sturdiness, because, you know, over time, and especially if it rains, the pin itself might get a little soggy, and since it's cardboard, they tend to become more flimsy over time. But if you want something that's really convenient and also really cheap, I think this is the best option. Like, you can use whatever cardboard for this, boxes and whatnot. It also helps that instead of using hot glue for the backing, it's literally just tape. So this is probably one of the best ones if you're that desperate for a pin, and I'd say it looks really cute outside of that. So in terms of convenience, this is like a 10 straight, just because you can use whatever, and it's easy to substitute a bunch of the different things that the creator used for other sealants. Sturdiness, I'd say it's maybe like a 5 or 6 compared to some of these other ones. You'd have to do more maintenance just to make sure that wear doesn't do too much to it, and if not, you're probably going to have to remake these a bunch of times, but I do think because it's so simple, remaking it a bunch of times doesn't seem to be too big of a problem. And this is again the most cost efficient on my list, so that would be another 10. As we can see, I'm being more generous with my ratings than the last video. Tangent aside, this is really, really fun, and I think it's probably the safest of the other DIYs that I've put on here, so do with that information what you will. I do have a little bonus one, and it's not necessarily a DIY because it does involve buying another pin. You can use those like ribbon pins that you find at the dollar store for birthdays or whatever, and then use that as, you know, a ribbon pin. And I notice a lot of ribbon pins, especially if you have Ita bags, those have very decorated pins, but you can find them for pretty cheap at your local dollar stores. And all you're really doing is replacing the image in the middle with whatever image that you want to put on there, and then you have a really cute ribbon pin, and I used that on my Ita bag, and I'll probably have that video linked in the description so you can see what I did there. I think it's really cute. It's not exactly cost efficient or convenient by any means, but you know, it's worth looking into. I mean, it's there, so I'm just kind of throwing it into the void and hoping that people look at it a little bit. But yeah, that's all of my DIYs I wanted to talk about today. If you have any that I didn't mention or have experiences with any of these, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. As always, my comment section is open to discussion of whatever. It doesn't even have to be on topic, really. I just love yapping. So, yeah. That's all. Bye!